Good evening. Welcome to the American Conservative Values Network, where we promote the values that have made America the greatest nation on earth, those values as expressed in some of our foundational documents, such as the English and American Bill of Rights, the American Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, and the Emancipation Proclamation. Welcome to our three-way dialogue tonight on current events. My name is Mike Swope. I'm an adjunct professor of history and government in the Detroit area, and I have my fingers in a lot of other pies as well. To my right is Vincent Green, a criminal defense attorney in Ingham County and former prosecutor in Ingham County. And to my left is Pam Devaney, who is involved in civic affairs in Jackson County. She's from Leone Township, and she is also a member of a mental health coalition, which we will be discussing later in the show. Our first topic is the right-to-work legislation that was just passed by the Michigan legislature and signed into law by Governor Rick Snyder. It is now a done deal. It is the law of the state, and it will go into effect 90 days after the what's called sine die adjournment of the legislature, which is their final adjournment. They don't intend to come back. So 90 days from that point, those laws will go into effect. But in the meantime, of course, you're going likely have challenges from the unions and the courts to try to prevent implementation or try to get the laws tossed completely, or they will try some other political mechanisms. But it was a very interesting day on Tuesday the 11th when the House of Representatives took up final consideration of those bills. And we have to point out the ugliness that was perpetrated by union members and perpetrated intentionally.
Right.
Have either of you seen anything where it looked like the union members who perpetrated the violence were immediately provoked, like where someone was poking them or
I was there.
Okay.
My practice, although my office is in the adjoining city, I had to be downtown twice for court matters. And the courthouse where I was going to is right in front of the Capitol.
Right.
So I was in the mix of it. And I saw the aggressiveness, especially as more and more people were drinking alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
They were drinking
Yeah.
alcohol.
Oh, yes. I know that a gentleman I represent owns a convenience store. I won't say which one it is. He said when they came in on the bus loads, they stopped there and got more alcohol than he usually sees on a Michigan State game day.
Mm-hmm.
Absurd.
And this is a work day. This is where people are supposed to out having a peaceful protest.
Now,
which they have a right
when you
to
talk
do.
about people, which people were they? Were they union?
The signs they were carrying were anti-legislation, so they were
Okay.
union members.
All right.
And I also, at the restaurant that we ate at, we noticed a lot of beer drinking going on during the lunch hour. And I know that I have a buddy of mine who owned a hot dog stand. He's always at the corner of
Clint Tarver.
Right, exactly.
That's
Friend
him,
of the
that's
show.
your
That's him.
friend.
Yes.
And
Okay.
he is the easiest going, nice guy.
Oh, absolutely.
He just tried to provide a service.
Absolutely.
Right.
They
and
destroyed.
we should explain, because his presence there has not been really well explained in the local media, I don't think. And that is, Clint Tarver he's got a business where he does sell hot dogs. Usually he has a cart out in front of the Capitol on most nice days, and he can be contracted to provide that service whenever he's available. And the Americans for Prosperity, which is a pro right to work group, did that. They contracted with Clint to have him come in and give hot dogs. They were not charging for hot dogs. Anybody who came into the tent could get a hot dog.
Exactly.
So they were giving free hot dogs.
They were giving away free hot
Providing
dogs.
a
He wasn't even
service.
charging him.
Right. Yeah. Clint was providing a service. He was contracted by the AFP. And when they destroyed, I believe it was the first tent, when the union goons destroyed the first tent, Clint's hot dog equipment was in there. And not only was a lot of his equipment damaged, in the tent coming down and the tables and all the tables coming down. But then the union members, when they cut up the tent, were intentionally destroying his equipment and stealing it piecemeal as as they were celebrating.
Right.
And the nice outcome out of that, I know we're going to get to the right to work legislation
Yep.
accountability, but the people really stepped to the plate, and as of a day or two after, I think over $20,000.
It's over 30,000 now as of yesterday.
And I'm sending some money.
Yeah,
I'm sending some money.
And the thing is that Clint Tarver, he was a businessman. He was he had a contract to provide a service. He was not there for any political reason, and yet these union goons destroyed his equipment. They're hurling racial epithets and to probably one of the nicest people in the state.
I agree. I agree.
I know Clint. He's a great guy. I know his wife. And it should be for full disclosure, should be pointed out that his wife is one of the Republican Party vice chairs. But Clint is not politically active.
No.
Clint's he's a businessman. He does go with his wife to political events, but that's because they're a loving couple and he puts up with it.
Right.
Well,
But
I'll tell you, Sean Hannity. He said the word thuggery, and I'm all
absolutely.
for it. I'm absolutely all for it.
Absolutely.
These folks, they were, to me, attacked. They were under a tent. It got pulled down on
Right.
top of them. They were
Cut
punched
up.
and beat.
Yes.
And it's complete thug behavior.
Absolutely. And before we move on, I want to say something. I am a union member. I'm a member of the MEA and of the AFT. I am appalled by the action of my fellow union members, and it was those actions, that union goonery, that probably tipped the balance in right to work between Prop 2, because probably the unions are claiming that Prop 2 was a preemptive strike. But what they did was to actually gain more votes, because before the unions tried that Proposition 2 measure, they were at least five to seven votes. The pro right to work people were at least 5 to 7 votes short in the House, and probably that many in the Senate. It was Prop 2 that pushed them over, and then the union goonery on this past Tuesday the 11th and the Thursday before, I think has turned a lot of people against unions. It was embarrassing to the union. It was embarrassing to me as a union member to see it. The unions are trying to, these weren't union people. They're even trying to spread the word these are pro right to work people that were doing it and posing as union people. No, they weren't. We know what it is. These were union goons who set out to commit that violence. It's reprehensible. Mm-hmm. The presidents of the unions should be demanding accountability. They should be turning these people over themselves. We shouldn't have to go looking for these goons. The union president should be turning them over.
Right.
The MEA president, Steve Cook, AFT and AFT president, that's you I'm talking to. Turn the thugs over.
That's right.
Let's get the bad apples out of our barrel.
That's right. And let's not forget that this is public property. This is our capital.
Right.
This is my capital. This is your capital.
Yep.
You are not to go to my capital and act like this. The way you guys are used to acting is unacceptable. I'm completely for the little eyes in the sky, the little cameras. I want these people to be in jail.
I want them to be picked out. Yep.
Take them to jail.
Yep. Pick them out.
Unacceptable. And the fact of the matter is that there was 2 schools. I'm not sure what schools that they were. They called in, or the
Taylor
children
School
didn't
District,
go
Taylor
to
School District, and one of them from downriver.
So the thugs could go to, now I'll say it, the thugs could go downtown and act like thugs. So you can't say, well, we're all out for the kids. You're not out for the
Right.
kids if you're keeping them home while you guys can go be
Yep.
thugs drinking. That's the first time
Right.
I heard it. They
Oh,
were
it's big
drinking
time.
and
No, there's reports that
Unacceptable.
there were reports that bars downtown were gearing up and getting extra supplies based for Tuesday based on the previous Thursday.
That is correct.
But this reprehensible conduct by union members, I'm
Absolutely.
appalled by it. I'm embarrassed by it. It embarrassed the union movement. tremendously, and union presidents should be finding those bad apples and kicking them out of the barrel. And as an AFT member, I'm a member of the AFL-CIO. President King, that's you. This is a member talking to you. Find these bad guys and turn them over the way they should be.
You have a responsibility.
Yep. There was a political difference there. Exercise the difference politically. Don't exercise it through violence.
And even if there's not a situation, no matter what it is, you have the right to go, and we have this great privilege.
Sure.
We can stand up and we can say, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this.
We have the right to free speech. We have the right to address
exactly.
the government for redress of
Go to another
grievances.
country and do that and go get yourself shot.
Oh,
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I dare you to go do that. See
Yep.
what happens to you there.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about the legislation.
Okay.
My wife is a school teacher, MEA member. First of all, she was appalled when she came here and came from Texas and found out that she was forced to join the union.
Yep.
She came from a state where accountability is in check. They make sure they have an excellent school system in Dallas, where she came from. She came from good schools. And when she came here and said that you have to do this, you have to pay dues, you're forced to do that, she was appalled. And then she, it's been my experience, and that when I've reviewed states that are right to work, it's working very well. And I heard a commentator the other day, Tim Barron, and I won't give a plug for a station because I'm not on that station right now, but Tim Barron brought something up that the right to work, and to me this makes sense, the legislature will make for stronger unions.
Possibly.
For those who choose to do this and choose to be a part of the union, it could be a stronger union, and they're going to be held accountable.
And it's no secret to our regular viewers that I am a union officer as well. And this is what I've been saying for years: is that the unions need to adopt a different business model, and this is going to force them to do that. And I think that that there are going to be some positive things come out of it. One of which is going to be that the unions are going to have to start treating us rank and file members as customers rather than as serfs.
Exactly.
Because now we have the option to resign from that union totally. Not just resign from the union, but still have to pay the agency fees. But we can resign from the union totally. And that leads to the second thing, which is that this is going to get the unions out of some of the political activities that are getting them a bad reputation in the first place. So instead of wasting so many dollars on by being a wholly owned subsidiary of the Democratic Party, and by being entirely predictable in politics, I think the unions are going to have to back away from some of those optional political activities and get back to what unions are supposed to be doing, which is collective bargaining.
Right. And I've always felt that way. I'm a member of the State Bar of Michigan, but I speak for myself. I can choose to do different, and I can't choose to opt out of the State Bar. All attorneys have to be a part of the State Bar, and I understand that.
Right.
But I can opt out of certain activities, certain political activities.
Yes.
I don't have to be a member of the Criminal Law Association. I don't have to be part of the Antitrust Association.
Right.
And I understand that. That makes sense. But the State Bar does not speak for me. I speak for me.
Right. And I think in the union, in the union circumstance, the unions have spent millions of dollars. Basically, they wasted it through political activities that they probably shouldn't have been in the first place, through very questionable political activities at that. But they're also, and the union officers are going to have to be accountable now. And here I'm going to speak to some inside politics. The MEA Public Affairs Director gets paid roughly about $175,000 a year. In the last 2 years, here's a list of the things that, a list of some things that he has sponsored within the MEA. He wanted the MEA to spend money on the recall of Representative Paul Scott in Genesee County, which cost the union roughly about $1 million. So Representative Scott was recalled, but then in the special election to fill that seat, there was an even better representative elected who is much more effective and not only won the special election but retained that seat. So there's a loss for the MEA. I'm sure they had the temporary win with the recall, but then they lost on the but then they lost the election. So that's not a win at all. There was millions of dollars spent last summer opposing opposing issues that simply gathered more votes for those issues, such as the 3% retiree health care, which has since gone to the courts, changes in the tenure system, all of which went through despite this gentleman's efforts.
A list.
Yeah, then it was this gentleman, at this gentleman's behest, the MEA joined what became the Proposition 2 movement, and there was a special appropriation of $3 million from what's called the CAP fund. So there's at least $3 million just spent over the summer, and I think there was an additional $3 from other union funds for political MEA political efforts this summer and for Prop 2, all of which failed. MEA joined Prop 2 at this gentleman's behest. That got beat by 15 points at the polls. That also then, as I said, probably pushed the number of votes in the legislature over for right to work, and right to work passed pretty solidly. And there's another, and then the MEA joined the efforts to get the two three Democrat Party nominees elected to the Supreme Court. They failed on 2 of the 3. But he gets paid $180,000, and yet he's still working today. Steve Cook, why is this man working? Why hasn't he been fired? Why are you wasting money on this guy? That's my money you're wasting. Fire the guy. Get somebody better. Accountability.
Exactly. And correct me if I'm wrong. It's one thing to work on issues that deal with education. Let's say I'm speaking about the MEA, but all the other unions, when they're working on issues that affect them directly, that's one thing. But when they're going outside of their realm,
absolutely,
that's what offends
this whole a bunch of this malarkey with this whole social justice thing. Very leftist ideals. Yeah, that offends a lot of their members. But the other, and what we got, we do have to take into account that when you're in politics long enough, you're going to lose on some issues. All 3 of us have been involved in politics in one way or another, and we've won and lost. But the MEA has a solid 2-year record of disasters, wasting millions of dollars of its members' money on issues that if anything gained more antipathy against the MEA rather than helped it.
And like you said, if the business model doesn't work, you need to change it.
Absolutely.
If my practice lost millions like that, if I lost every case I tried, I better be looking for something else.
And now for all those times that I got up in the MEA Representative Assembly and said that the business model needs to be changed, guess what, folks? The day has arrived. Now the unions are peddling this whole thing that this whole movement was bought and paid for by a small number of people, by the Koch brothers or by Dick DeVos. Let's get into that for a minute. Because I happen to know Dick DeVos, of course, being involved in Republican politics at the state level. It's hard not to. Dick DeVos is a good guy, and yes, he has given money to some pro-business efforts. The Koch brothers, I believe, are very generous donors to Americans for Prosperity. But this issue is something that has been talked about in Michigan for a while, well before the Koch brothers ever started giving money politically. And this is something that's been, there's been this movement that's been growing. But one of the things that I want to point out is that it's funny that the unions keep saying, "Oh, Koch brothers, Dick DeVos are buying things up," when they really don't care about George Soros spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and those unions also take money from George Soros groups. And who's the pharmaceutical heir down in Calhoun County that's giving some?
Well, you got the Upjohn heir.
Began with an S. Whoever that guy was, who's given millions of dollars. They're fine taking money from those people and dancing to their tune. But Koch brothers, Dick DeVos, those are the evil boogeymen. We got to look out for those guys. I think it's, unions get, deal with the times. It's time for it's
a
time
big
for the
week.
different for the
It's a big
different
week.
business model. And I can't ever remember seeing Dick DeVos at any of these things, and I can't remember seeing the Koch brothers around any of these around these things. Dick DeVos has been, matter of fact, Dick DeVos has kept a very low political profile for the last 3 years.
Yes.
He hasn't, he just hasn't been around much. So, I'm hard pressed. I mean, maybe he gave some money to these groups, but as far as, I'm pushing the effort or, or the legislators, dancing to his tune, I'm just not seeing it. So, there's another issue,
Yeah, we were going to talk about something else a little bit
much more,
sad level.
another issue involving violence, a great tragedy. And that is, of course, the shootings at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. All of us at acvn pass our sympathies to the families of the victims, and we hope that our viewers will contribute to some of those funds to help those folks get through what they need to get through. I should point out that we are taping roughly about 56 hours after the shootings took place, and that this is a breaking news story. So a lot of what we're going to be saying in our last 8 minutes here, or 7 or 8 minutes, is going to be really speculative.
Still pretty new.
Yeah, and one of the things that has come out from this story, and again, this is, it's a little more than 2 full days after the events took place, is that the national news networks seem to have done a horrible job on breaking this news. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's difficult for us to talk about it again as we tape about 56 hours after the events began, because what we thought we knew in the first day after is turned out to be absolutely wrong. For example, one of the things that was being said 2 afternoons ago, as this story was first breaking, is that the shooter's mother was a teacher at the school, and apparently she's not.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I was still under the assumption that she was still.
Yeah, because when
I'd
we
like
walked
to-
into tape, that's when you first heard that
is the
correction.
first one.
Because that was because that was one of the storylines of the day, is that the shooter had shot his mother, and then gone to his mother's classroom and shot up all those students. But apparently that's not the case.
Right. These babies. I actually have a quote from the gunman's father that he released a statement. His name is Peter Lanza, and half the quote, just because of time, it says, "No words can truly express how brokenhearted we are. We are in the state of disbelief and trying to find whatever answers we can. We too are asking why." So that's the family.
Right, and one of the stories that's developing, even as we tape, is that, is trying to figure out the relationship that the shooter had to his parents, and based on what we know right now, it appears that his father wasn't really around. The shooter was from a broken home. Right. Parents were divorced, and it doesn't appear like his father was really involved with the child that much, even when he was married to the shooter's mother.
Well, and I'm a former assistant prosecutor and also do a lot of defense, and I defend people who do this. Thank God I haven't had to defend anyone that's committed this type of atrocity. Right. But I've defended some really bad people, and I'll say amazing, but it's really not amazing the amount of my clients, 90%, that come from broken homes.
Right.
Either the sentencing report, a report we get from probation, father unknown.
Yep.
Fathers with the Department of Corrections. and we're seeing that, and you know, we could again a whole show go back
Right.
to the whole
Yeah.
idea of a family value,
and-
but this is real.
Yes.
You know, it's not a political statement. It's not an emotional statement.
It's
This
statistics.
is real. I mean, this guy, if he would have lived, he would have been charged with, you know, on a,
Yeah, let's go over that list, and you know, because you know, of course, the liberals are now trying to use this for gun control, but let's go over the list of what we can think of. Pam, our non-legal scholar might have to sit out for a couple minutes, but let's just think of the laws that were that this shooter violated in the commission of the crime. So we have, starting off, 26 counts of murder in first degree.
open murder, first degree premeditated.
Yep.
Right?
So right there you start with one law, 26 counts. Illegal discharge of a weapon. That's a felony
is
count. And that would be that's a felony. There's another 27 counts.
Right, correct.
Then we would have illegal breaking and entering, because he did break into the school.
That is correct.
What else?
You would have
what am I missing?
a
there?
number of counts of felony firearm in this state.
Yes.
Felony firearm it means you commit a felony with a firearm.
Right.
And it's a mandatory 2 years in prison in Michigan. I can't speak for Connecticut. That would be each count.
Right.
Carrying concealed weapon.
So that'd be another 27 counts.
If
So
he
we're up to
pointed
26 by 3 already.
If
It's
he pointed,
78.
and no matter how many people he pointed the gun at, that would be felonious assault.
So that's probably, let's just say right off the bat, that's got to be at least another 40. So we're already over 100 felony counts that he would be facing if he had survived.
And then those who lived, varying degrees, but probably assault with the intent
Assault
to
with intent
commit
to kill.
murder.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
So I mean, and then you never
And
know
also
about-
theft of the weapons, because one of the other stories that is broken this morning is that he used his mother's weapon. So there you would have, and there were 3 weapons. There's been 3 weapons talked about so far. So there you got another 3 counts of theft of a weapon. So
We're just talking about state law.
Right.
You know, there might have been. I know
It could have
there's
been-
federal laws.
could have been federal laws
which
too,
would bring it to rise to.
But he's already over 100 counts. So my question for the gun control advocates is, what one more law would have made this guy stop? And
Nothing.
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 And what would
Nothing.
that law say? Yeah, I mean that's the lunacy of gun control. You know, it was
Or-
already illegal for him to do what he did.
Or if teachers were allowed to arm themselves.
And that is a controversy
have
this
training.
week. That was a controversy this week, because there's a bill passed to that would allow that in the Michigan legislature. And as we are taping, it's awaiting the governor's signature.
Exactly.
Governor Snyder signed that bill.
In the state of Michigan, there are certain areas arenas you cannot take a firearm in if you're not law enforcement.
Right.
If you have a regular
Yep.
concealed pistol.
And school's one of them. That's the
School's
reason
one of
why
them.
schools get
So you
shot
have
up.
to-
Right.
So you have to be a law
Right.
enforcement.
Exactly, and that's where I found out schools, entertainment places, or 2,500 or more people, nightclubs,
Alcohol, any place serves alcohol.
Right. If you are a responsible person, have the CPL, have been through the course, the appropriate training, that's where I may not necessarily need my firearm driving down the freeway.
I've had these
Right.
discussions with my faculty colleagues for years, because a lot of my faculty colleagues are against teachers being able to carry. But the way that I always end my argument is, you know, if something like this happens, what do you want me holding? Do you want me holding a gun or my breath? You know, if your classroom's being shot up, which of those 2 things do you want me holding? We're down to our last, real close on time. But Pam, we got to talk about the whole mental health aspect,
Sure.
because
Well, we're
it's
not- yeah.
come out that this shooter was a mental health patient, that he was severely disturbed. And I would make the argument that the question we need to ask is not a question of gun control, but a question of mental health efficacy in this country.
Sure, sure.
Address that for about 30 seconds.
For about
We're
30
getting close,
seconds.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not sure exactly what the person had, what he was diagnosed with. Was he even diagnosed? But
He was diagnosed. He was taking psychotropic drugs.
he was taking, oh, so he was diagnosed.
Yep.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is Connecticut could easily be right here in Jackson County. So I'm a member of the National Alliance for Mentally Ill People. We have a monthly meeting. Elaine Solomon is the chairman here. We have Lifeways here. They're available all the time. We have a place called
Real
Dove
quickly, we need
Allowance,
to wrap up.
Alliance. Folks, if you have problems, if you feel like you might be losing it, it's okay. Go to these places, get some help, so you don't become one of these people too, and we don't have this same problem in
Right.
Jackson
Ask for
County.
help, or if you know someone who needs help, make sure that they get it.
It's important,
Un-
very
un-
important.
Unfortunately,
Thank you.
we have run out of time. For Vince Green, for Pam Devaney, for all of us here at the American Conservative Values Network, thank you for joining us. Please join us next time.
Thank you.